Hello, today we're going to be studying how to find the percent of a number. We've already talked about percentages earlier this year and how to make them. For example, as a review, if I have 3/10, what does that look like as a percentage? We've done that. We've said, move our decimal 2 places because we're multiplying by 100. And our answer is 30%. If I had a fraction, say 3/8, I'd first do, numerator divided by denominator, like a division sign. And that would equal, 3 divided by 8 is 0.375. Move our decimal 2 places to the right, just like we did here. And our answer is 37.5%. So that's the review of how to find percentages when given the decimal. We're going to use that information along with proportions and take it another step forward. So what is a percent? A percent is a part of 100. Per is part, cent, 100. 100 pennies in a dollar. How do I find a percent of a number? Well, there are 2 ways to find the percent. One is to set up and solve a proportion, and the second is to convert the percent to a decimal and then multiply. We're going to practice both ways in this video. I do want you to record this definition and what the 2 ways are. And as we go through, you're taking notes and doing the examples. So first example is using a proportion. So label that example 1, using a proportion. It says find 67% of 90. So what that would look like in real life is I might say, we have 96 graders, close to it. 67% of them are interested in going to watch the movie this weekend. Well, how many kids should I be expecting? Well, that's what I'm going to figure out with this problem. So we're going to set it up as a proportion. 67% looks like this. 67 over 100. 67 kids per 100 kids is what I want to know, but I don't have 100 kids, so I've got to figure that out. I have 90 total kids, so my totals always go on the bottom. What I want, the piece of the total is on top. So think about fractions. The whole's in the bottom, the top is the part. I don't know what this part is, so that's my variable like we've been doing with proportions. So right now, this should look like just like we've been doing this whole for the last couple of weeks. So my question is, how did I get from 100 to 90? So I'm going to take my calculator and do 100 divided by 90. And that equals so divided by, let's see here, 1 second. So I divided by 1.1 or so to get to 100 because 100 divided by 90 is this. So if I divide by that, it's close. It's like 90.9. We're going to be okay because of the rounding. So what you do to the 1, you do to the top. So 67 divided by 1.1 is equal to, and I'm going to erase this because I need it. It's going to be 60.9. So again, I did 100. How did I get it from 100 to 90? And I divided 1.1 to get that. And then 67 divided by 1.1, and I get 60.9. So mathematically, my answer is 60.9. However, and they got 0.3 because they've got a little bit of different rounding. However, if I was asking real life how many kids are going, you would say around about 60 kids are going to be going to the movie. So that's how you would interpret that question. Let's go to the next one. Check first. Does my answer make sense? Since 67% is more than half, we should expect the answer to be more than half, which it is, of 90, which is 45. Half of 90 is 45. Also, since 90 is close to 100, we should also expect the answer to be close to 67. So that's just checking real life, was I in the right ballpark or not? All right, next one. So again, we're still using a proportion. So just like in the example 1, set up the proportion with percent of 100. So again, I want to know 145% of 210. So record that. So 145 over 100. Okay? And then I want to find out 145% of 210. So again, 210 is my total, and I want to find out what the piece is, what 145% of this is. So I'm going to get my calculator and do 210 divided by 100 to see how I got there. And I did that by multiplying by 2.1. I'm just going to double check. 100 times 2.1 does equal 210. So what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. Okay? And then 2.1 times 145 is 304.5. So 145% of 100 in proportion is a 304.5 over 210. So this means more than, you know, it's a lot, okay? And to check to see if that makes sense, we have to figure out, well, 100% of 210 is 210, and then about 50% more is a little over 100 more. So that's where we check our work. All right, example 3, using decimals as equivalents. So again, record this, example 3, using decimal equivalents. And I want to find 8% of 50. So it says to first convert 8% to a decimal. So remember, if I said back in my first video, my first reminder, that to take a decimal to make a percent, we move it 2 places to the right. Well, if we're taking a percent and moving to the decimal, we move our decimal 2 places to the left. So if my decimal is here right now, we're going to move it 2 places to my left. So now my answer is 0.08. That's the decimal for 8%, 8 pennies out of 100. And then we're going to multiply it by 50 because this is what my value is. So let me get my calculator. 0.08 times 50 equals 4. Okay? So again, you have your 8%, move it to a decimal, take your decimal, multiply it by 50, and that equals 4. So 8% of 50 is 4. And this is good to think about when you're tipping. You know, when you go out to dinner and you want to, you know, tip the waiter. I tip 20%, that's just my personal preference. 20%, and this is just an example. If I want to tip 20% and my bill is, let's say, $15, well, 20% moved to a decimal is 0.2, and then we multiply that times 15, so 0.2 times 15 is 3. So this indicates that I should leave a $3 tip on my $15 bill for my waiter if I think, you know, they get 20%. Okay, so does the answer make sense? Back to the original question. Since 8% is less than 10, we know that the answer should be small. We also know that 8% of 100 is 8%. So it makes sense that our answer is half, since 50% is half of 100. So our answer does make sense. All right, again, using decimal equivalents, our example this time is to find 0.5%. So not 5%, 0.5% of 36. So much different. 0.5 is different than 5%. Just like in the example 3, convert the percent to a decimal. So if 0.5 is my percent, I need to make it, is the decimal, I need to move it 2 places to the left, and that's going to be 0.005 now. Do you see how that's different than 5%? 5% looks like this as a decimal, 5 pennies. This is less than 1 penny, so make sure you keep those separate. So then I take my 0.005 and multiply it by 36. And that equals 0.18. So again, we know this is going to, it makes sense, and it's hard to explain, but it's a very, very small amount. So 18 cents is very small compared to 36 whole dollars. All right, so now you've got a couple to try, and I'm going to solve, we'll see how timing works. I'm going to solve them as well, so if you want to pause right now so you can work on them yourself, then I'll get on and show you how to do them. So I'm going to work on the proportion way. So So 3% over 100. And the 12 is the whole. So how did I get from 100 to 12? So divided by 8.3. So 3 divided by 8.3 equals, let's see here. Yeah. Sorry, I got lost. 3 divided by 8.3 is 0.36. So again, I stopped for a second because I was like, oh, that sounds really small. But again, if you think about it, 3% is a really, really small value. Whereas 50% of 12, this is 3, and 50% is 6, 25% is going to be 3. Well, that's why it's getting a lot smaller. And if I were to do the decimal, it would look like this. So 3, convert it to a decimal. So it'd be 0.03 times 12. And that is 0.36. So you can use it as a check almost. So 9% of 80, so again, 9 over 100 equals something over 80. So 100 divided by 80 equals, so 9 divided by 1.25 is 7.2. And again, with my decimal form, 9, so it's going to be, whoops, 80. .2. And then if you like the challenge, like I said, this is, a couple of practice problems. If you want a challenge, you can go on. I've got 2 different problems here. You can pause and work on those. Otherwise, we're going to probably start in class tomorrow with these problems. So getting into real life, what it looks like for these percentages to be coming up. It's a very, very important skill to have, percentages. It's how your grades are developed, is percentages.